All right.
Hey everybody, it's Coach Galardi and welcome to another free 30-minute coaching call by Think Like an Executive. We are so happy you're here today. Today I'm joined by Ramon Vela, who is, what the name of your podcast is called, what? The Story of a Brand podcast, right?
Exactly.
Ramon?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So a little bit about Think Like an Executive. If this is your first time here and just tuning in, Think Like an Executive is a premier real estate coaching company. I am the head coach and president for the company. And we really go down to the fundamentals of being a real estate agent. We've really broken it down very simply with small and achievable goals. I basically take a mirror, hold it up to your face and say, are you truly ready for the amount of success and ready and willing to do what you say you want to have? Are you ready? Let's go. Coaching. Excellent. All right. The Story of a Brand podcast. Tell me about it. I see that you are, I'm just going to give you the highlights here, Ramon.
Sure.
Top 200 of business Apple podcasts, but I'm sure that that's got to be higher now, right?
Well, it moved around. So yeah, it's a tough business, but yeah, it goes from, sometimes I've been in the top 10, like right next to Gary Vee, and I've gone back down to 200. It's just, it's a funny business.
But there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there on Apple and all these other platforms that are out there. And to be even in the top 200, I mean, I hope they give you an award for that, because that's awesome. You know, it's,
yeah. I mean, last time I started, it was 500,000 on Apple Podcasts alone. And the last time I checked, I think there was like 750,000 podcasts on Apple Podcasts alone.
Wow. Well, 750,001. So,
yeah.
and me. So not ranking in the top 200 of business. And then you're in the top 60 of Apple Podcast Business Entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So I like that. So they, they've got even different categories and categories of categories and stuff. So that's impressive alone. The one thing that really impresses me is you have interviewed some super successful people, CEOs of PAIGE, Sugarfina, Diff Eyewear, Pair of Thieves, Hum Nutrition, the Bouqs, is it Bouqs, right? The bouquet?
The Bouqs, yeah.
Bouqs, okay. Mighty Audio, Burst Oil, I mean, Ties.com, everything on and on and on. So you've got 170 something episodes now on your podcast. I mean, we're going to get into trust and being an authority and all that stuff later, but how did you get to these people? How did you convince them to be on your show at show number 1, show number 5, 10, whatever? Kind of walk me through that.
Well, it wasn't easy, but I'll just tell you that. So it wasn't easy. Of course, everything comes with hard work, but it really comes down to just a couple of things, really. In those early days, just to put some context, I actually had, when I had Sugarfina on, Rosie O'Neill, I had about 100 to 150 streams a month. That's it. Okay. And so,
you're talking about people that are actually listening to your show.
Yeah, people are listening to the show. Yeah, it was 150 streams. And that's actually, I think the average is 200 and something for a lot of podcasts. Wow. But, mine was it's very small compared to what, she might be used to podcasts or shows that have much larger audiences. So a couple of things. One is I just asked, right? So just asking that activity alone is amazing, because we don't think sometimes that people will respond, or you think like, wow, the CEO of Sugarfina, and at that time she had stores all over the place and so forth. And so you think, okay, maybe, she's not going to respond. She's not going to participate. Maybe you're too, like you're nobody and so forth. So you get that imposter syndrome, whatever.
Sure.
So one is just ask, because it's surprising how many people will respond to you and want to help you. And like she did, she responded to me right away. She got back to me. She actually met with me in person. We videotaped the conversation. And it was just a great show, and one of my favorite shows altogether, but I love them all, of course. So that was one of them. And then the other thing was I just had a compelling message, and the message was that, the mission, I guess it would be, is that I just wanted to unpack what it was and why it was that people connected to her brand. And of course, a founder, an entrepreneur, someone who built a business who loves the business more than them, right? Who's the one who the business is actually an extension of them. So of course they want to talk about it. So of course that was, the power of just that alone, asking and then having this mission and getting and a mission that got them excited. I mean, that really helped. And then of course, by getting Sugarfina and getting Diff Eyewear in the early days and pair of Thieves and so forth, getting them in the early days just helped build momentum
Of
for the
course.
rest of the time span.
Yeah, activity breeds momentum for sure. So, the one thing I talk about in real estate all the time to my students is you have to ask for the business, and you're 100% right. And it's what the Michael Jordan quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So it's going to cost you nothing right now. And I'll tell you, and I say it almost every episode, that LinkedIn is my favorite social media now, and that's how you and I met. And it's
Yeah.
just so easy in today's time frame that we're in to go out there and say, would you like to be on my podcast? Sure, I may not have the listenership of 150 streams every single month, whatever, but we're building something, and please, I want to hear your story. The guy that I spoke to, Jake Lynn, yesterday, I mean, it's so, the fundamentals of life and business and everything are so simple when he's like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Shut up. Stop talking. Let them tell your story. And people, you're right. People love telling their stories. And I can't tell you how many times I've told my story again over and over. I mean, my wife can probably tell you my story just as well as I can because she's heard it so many times, But it's great. You've interviewed some really, really heavy hitters, as I call them. And now, one thing is you also focus a little bit on startups and businesses and e-commerce and stuff. And so right now, the time we're in, why is right now the greatest time to start a business, do you feel?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, I think. And the funny thing is, when I interview folks, I ask the same thing. What do you think the environment's like, and so forth. I actually was just talking to or listening to an episode we just dropped with a company called Taylor Stitch. And Taylor
Oh, I
Stitch,
think I've heard of that. Yeah.
it's a clothing company. It's fantastic. We interviewed Mike Mahar, who is the CEO and founder of that, or co-founder of that place. And he said the same thing too, in that he thought today was a good time, which I agree with him. He actually started Taylor Stitch also during the 2008, 2010 recession.
Sure.
And I agree with him. I think what happens is that right now there is a level playing field because there's an
Great
old
point.
saying.
Great point.
Yeah, there's an old saying about recession. It's like good times mask your flaws, and then of course bad times just like basically make them visible,
Sure.
right? So
Expose them.
expose them. And so a lot of companies, unfortunately, for whatever reason, because they weren't run correctly, they weren't managed correctly, they were overburdened with debt and so forth, they just couldn't survive. They're not surviving this time, and then it's unfortunate. But on the brighter side, people out there who have been laid off or have been thinking about starting a business right now, because of that, the playing field is leveled, right? Everybody is at the same place. Like look, for instance, like this medium here, right? Video. In the old days, you would have thought, or not old days, a couple of months ago, you would have thought,
Is that
uh,
the old days now?
yeah,
90 days ago?
well, you would have thought like, hey, I need this kind of equipment. I need that kind of equipment. I need to make it professional. I need to do all this stuff. All you got to do is turn on the television, look at Saturday Night Live, and look at the quality of video that they're using now for Saturday Night Live. It looks just like what we're doing here. It looks like someone on their phone. It looks like, so if that's acceptable now, which I believe it is, because a lot of people understand, hey, we're in pandemic, you're at home and so forth. So right now, I mean, the barriers of entry to equipment, the barriers of entry to going out there, getting your name out there, I mean, they're so low right now. This is why it's so important. And then, of course, pricing, right? Pricing, even if you just look at Facebook pricing, which is actually beginning to go back up again. But if you look at Facebook and some of the others, their pricing hasn't been this low since like 2012, 2013.
Mm.
It was a perfect time to start advertising and going out there and do your digital ads and so forth. So there's just so many different reasons, but I mean, I think the best one is that the playing field has been leveled.
Yeah, I love that. I actually even wrote that down, that we're on a level playing field now. And I think that you've just completely summarized that, because and I'm probably going to I'm going to steal that actually. So I'm
That's all
stealing
right.
it on you right now. So
Right. Yeah.
it's out there. But no, I mean, that completely summarizes why you've had probably so much success of reaching Sugarfina and all of these people that you've reached, because we're all the same right now. We're all equal as far as that goes. And talking about like the technology aspect of it, you and I were speaking earlier. Yeah, I grossly overspent on a microphone. I probably could have bought, a $50 lavalier mic right here, and it would have sounded just as good. And I'll tell you, I got my, my Google Pixel phone right here. This is all you need. I mean, this camera in reality is probably better than the webcam that I'm using now. And so there should be no excuses out there right now. And I'm telling you that whenever we get out of this, and whether it's 120 days, 150, whatever the number is, you're going to look back on that time frame. And let's just do it now. We've been in here, in this pandemic for 90 days. What have you done over the last 90 days to be, I'll give you a great example. Actually, let me back up. Spoke to a good friend of mine yesterday, and he's going through some tough times, and he's a realtor also. And, I said, what have you done over the last 90 days to be creative, inventive, to go out there and drum up business? Well, I haven't. Okay. So you're those 88% of the people over there that are just like, why me type stuff, or, hey, we're in this pandemic, I'm not going to do anything. Now I'm in that top 12%, and I've created the Think Like an Executive podcast. I've created so many different businesses within my business, and every single day I'm working at it. And it's kind of like, I want to start working out. Well, I'm not going to start January 1. I'm going to start Tuesday, like right now. And so, if you wanted to eat better, drink less, work out, start a podcast, now is the time to do it. Because when you get back to work, you're not going to have the time to do it. And you're going to go, dang it, I should have done that over that 90, 120 day period. So yes, we're all on a level playing field. Now is the time to start a business. I completely agree with you, man.
Yeah. Well,
all
and
right.
if you don't mind, I wanted to mention something that
Sure, please.
related to that. In the founders that I've interviewed in the last couple of months, I've interviewed some actually really big ones, and I've actually done it in my closet, just so you know. My closet, I've been playing around the house trying to figure out what the best room to record in, and
right.
The closet actually provides really good soundproofing. So
okay.
I interviewed like the founder of Pure Vita in my closet, and the funny thing is that I did it unbeknownst, but someone sent me a response on LinkedIn when I mentioned that, because I took a pic of my setup in the closet, and Sarah Blakely, who's billionaire, Spanx founder, and so forth, she responded actually, and she was like, me too. She actually has a pic of herself in her closet recording a podcast, right? So hey, billionaires, and again, back to the level playing field, a billionaire is in her closet recording a podcast just like I am.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's not leveling the playing field, I don't know what is. But the interesting thing that a lot of the founders have told me, which, they probably wouldn't want me saying this on air because, they don't want a bunch of salespeople perhaps like bombard them. I don't know, but I'm going to say it anyways. I've had more than one and several tell me that right now they have a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
Like they're open to talking to founders. They're open to talking to other business owners. They're open to just, using their time wisely because they have more time, because they're not traveling. They're not going back and commuting. So, again, back to that level playing field. If you're a salesperson, even a real estate person, and you're trying to get a hold of some of those high-end clients or whatnot, right now is the best time. They're sitting at home. They have time. So I don't know what, I mean,
no, 100% right. I mean, it's very easy to reach people right now because our lives have slowed down by 90%, and I'll tell you, I'm saving 3 to 3.5 hours of drive time every single day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I think that part of the reason why I'm so energized, I mean, I would wake up at 6:45 in the morning. I'd be on the road by, maybe let's call it 7:30, 8ish, sitting in traffic for 45 minutes to an hour to go 13 miles, mind you, like that's it. And so an hour there, an hour back, an hour over this way, driving to meetings and stuff like that, 3 hours a day. By the time I get home, 7 o'clock at night, eating dinner at 7:30, 8, I mean, I'm exhausted. And now that I'm at home and I've recouped that time back, man, I'm at my computer, I'm at my desk at 8 a.m. every single day, productive, creative. I'll go eat lunch 15 feet away. I come back and, I don't have to go anywhere, do anything. And I'm working till 8 o'clock at night and my energy level is through the roof. I love this, not the pandemic side of it, but I love the time that we're in because I never was a work from home kind of guy because of too many distractions. But I'll tell you, as soon as I close that door behind me, there's no distractions and I am laser focused. So yeah, I think that now is a great time to reach out to people and go capture some new business. People want to interact. They miss the interaction with people, the socialization of it. So these are great opportunities right now that a lot of people are missing. So, I know that every brand, every company, every person has a story, and I wanna hear your story and how you got into the story of a brand podcast. But also, how can people convey their story? How can people, again, all you need is a cell phone. You can literally be on YouTube tomorrow, today, and telling your story. So what are some things that can help people make a compelling story to give their story some edge and some flair? And again, what is your story? How did you get here today?
Well, it's real. I'll make it quick.
Okay.
And so basically, I've been an entrepreneur for a good part of my career. I have worked for some large corporations, Sun Microsystems, which got purchased by Oracle, and some others. And so I have worked in the corporate world, but I worked at a company that I really, really loved early on in my career, in my early 20s. And I just had such a great time there. I mean, it was entrepreneurial. It was kind of like a division of a larger corporation. We were sort of on our own. And I just really enjoyed it. I mean, I would have walked through hell for that CEO, and it was just such a great company. I felt like such a kinship, like we were all together. And when I left that and I went to other companies, like I always thought, wow, I could not, I missed those days. So I couldn't find it. So what I ended up doing is, and not just for that fact, but for, I was having my first child and she was a baby and I was traveling 2 weeks out of the month. I decided, you know what, now's the time for me to start a business. So, because one, I wanted my own freedom and I wanted to be there with my family, but also, I wanted to recapture that magic that I felt at that other company. And so I started my own company and I worked a few of those. In 2008, I had to learn my own lessons too. I had over a six-figure company and multiple six figures, and we were doing well. The 2008 recession came around and just kicked my butt. Just really, really bad. I had to let go of a bunch of folks. I had all this debt. I over leveraged myself.
Sure.
I had too many playthings. I had bought a couple of other businesses. And, at that time, money was just flowing in. And then when money stopped flowing in, that was the hard part. And so that took me a few years to extricate from myself from the situation.
Sure.
And I took some time off, and eventually I decided to come back in and start working in the e-commerce world this time, not the enterprise software world. So kind of had to reinvent myself a little bit. A lot of the underlying technologies were the same, and I knew marketing, of course, because I ran an agency. But I decided to move into a different field, which is e-commerce. And so slowly but surely did that, and that sort of evolved into, what I'm doing today, working with e-commerce companies, working with Shopify's of the world. A lot of the Shopify is like the underlying platform when you go to a website and you're going to buy a new jacket or whatever.
Shopify.
Yeah, Shopify is that platform, WooCommerce, others. Mm-hmm. So, I started working with them, and then I got involved with brands, and then before you knew it, I had my podcast.
So how does, and that's a great story. I mean, the bounce back, from 07, 08, I mean, I think that we were all in the same situation. This is never going to end. It's just raining money, it's too easy. It's like buying a Volkswagen, sign and drive. I mean, that's what buying a house was back in, 04, 05. I mean, it was stupid money. It was free money, it felt like. But so how can somebody share their story and build their story and make it exciting? Because I mean, I think you've got an exciting story, and I think that you've got a great brand. and your brand is talking to other brands about what makes their brand so great.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like the angle of it. I like the twist. So what can I do to make my story more impactful, better, and share my story? Bigger, it's a big question, I know.
Yeah, well, I kind of I summarized my story because I didn't want to get all stuck in the minutia. There's a lot of little lessons in there too, but the big one I think is just essentially, I wanted to, what I'm doing right now is basically sort of almost an answer to what I was going with me before. I went through a lot of stuff, made a lot of mistakes, and part of me creating this podcast was because a good component of the podcast is talking about their story, the founder story, their entrepreneurial journey, their lessons learned,
Sure.
and also talking about the brand themselves, the products that they create. And so part of that is that because I want to share lessons for others to avoid the mistakes that I made. So part of this is, for me, it's almost like I want to give back, not only, because I'm interested in it, but I know a lot of entrepreneurs go through, hard times, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I mean, running your own business is just not easy. We hear a lot of the good parts, but there's a lot of parts in there that, we need, we just need those areas. We need support. We need that other, fellow entrepreneur to talk to and so forth. So I wanted to build that. But getting back to the point about the story, there's a couple of things that I've noticed that make a really good, compelling story. And the compelling story is that one is when you're telling your story, you're actually not telling your story. And I know it sounds funny, but it's true. When you're telling your story, you're actually telling the story of others, and you want people to see themselves in your story. So I know that sounds a little esoteric, but you need people to see themselves in your story, right? When you talk about struggle, right? What they call it the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey is, you go on a quest, you run into challenges in trying to get that quest, and then you solve that quest, and then there's happy ending or whatnot. And so people need to see themselves in the story that you tell. They need to see, like, wow, coach, your story about struggle and how you did this and how you did that. They want to see themselves in it. And so a good story you're not really talking about yourself in many ways. You're really talking about the human struggle, and you're talking about the struggle that others can relate to.
Yeah. They want to identify with it.
Identify with. That's the biggest, what's one of the biggest things I see with people, successful brands and founders who are really great at communicating their story. And the other thing too, is that people want to feel aligned with, with your story, with your values, with your beliefs. Like, for instance, like yourself, you're very positive. You've got this really good energy about you. You're like always going and always moving, and people are attracted to energy. What's that old saying about, the thing in motion stays in motion, and activity basically is contagious, and it's attractive. People want to be around people and things that have momentum, whether it's a stock market or it's a business or it's a group or whatever it is. They want to see momentum. And so that a momentum is another alignment. So find ways that people can align to you. Some people, like in the brand world, they use like the green, clean ingredients, right? They're either around social impact. So like, let's say they have a social issue that it's important to them. So people buy their products because they're like, wow, I really like that company because they believe in this, right? Or whatever that is. Or maybe that company believes in, keeping their supply chain clean, which is maybe paying, equal wages to their manufacturers, making sure that there's no child labor being used in their factories or whatnot and so forth. There's all sorts of other things, or clean ingredients. Like, we only use organic ingredients, right? You hear that a lot. So people want to feel aligned with those things. So don't be afraid to talk about your mission. Don't be afraid to talk about your values. You don't have to be controversial necessarily, but you know what I mean? But be honest. And then the last thing is that being authentic. People want authenticity. They want to know you care, and they want to know that, you believe in what you're saying you believe in, and that's the reason why I have founders on the show, because no one else can communicate that authenticity the way the founder can.
Well, I mean, if you take the sales out of salesperson, you've got person. So
Mhm.
I think that that's kind of essentially what you're saying is be a real person, share your story, make it relatable, identifiable with people. And yeah, I got more drawn in the more you started speaking about that, and I could absolutely see that. I'm actually going to skip ahead one of my questions because you mentioned something about, and I don't know what company it was, but you had a kinship that you would have died for them, basically. You would have bled for them. And this kind of goes to one of my questions down here. There's certain words in the industry that I feel are so overused, and frankly, I'm absolutely tired of these words. And let me kind of give you my buzzwords that I can't handle it. I can't handle it. Hustler. I'm a hustler. To me, I think that word is so overused because everybody that uses it is not a hustler. And to me, it's almost like, I don't want to say like a derogatory term, but
Yeah.
it's a street term that I'm going to go out and make a quick buck. I don't want my real estate agent or my salesperson, whatever, to be a hustler. The new normal. I'm definitely tired of that. Collaborative, pivot, and culture. I know pivot's the thing to say in these type of meetings, and we're going to pivot our business and do this. I just think it's overused, as well as the two big ones for me, collaborative and culture. But going back to what you're saying is you would have died for this guy. You would have bled for this guy. What company was it, first off?
So it doesn't exist anymore. It's a company
Okay.
called it was a company called Marisol, and it was a division of Marisol, which is what was called MoCA. It was called the Marisol Open Computing Alliance. It was a division of the company. That company was the third largest technology distributor at one point, and I'm dating myself, of course, which is in the 90s. And now it doesn't exist. So like, it's just another example of easy come, easy go. Like
Sure.
a $1 billion company now doesn't exist. But MoCA was actually the only division that was profitable on that organization. And it was because we were entrepreneurial and we were almost like our separate company. And so
Yeah.
that organization still exists, but it exists now in another company. So
But the one key word is culture. And every brand out there says, and every agent says, "Oh, I'm collaborative," and every brand says, we've got culture and stuff." It's just such an easy term to throw around that I just feel like it's so overused and misused. So how did they create a culture for you that, and I know what the answer is for me. And so, but how did that brand create a culture for you? How would a business person, a realtor, create a culture with their clients, create a collaborative environment with their clients? And why did you, trust is a big word that no one uses anymore, and I think that's the word that should be, not trust me, but just trust in general in the process, the business, everything. So why is how come you believed in that company so much with their culture, their environment, and the team leaders?
well, I think there's a couple of things. One is um, they were they built an environment where they were as they were as focused on the development of their employees as they were to the development of their customers.
Okay.
So they thought about like I mean, and they built it in. It wasn't just like, hey, I believe in you guys. I want to see you guys succeed. They actually built in processes, and a lot of the really good founders, eventually that's where they find themselves. Is that they're no longer just about the customer and the products. They spend just as much time on their people, on building the process, building up, a structure that helps to nurture their people around, whether that's like self-development or education or you also just getting together, doing things, right, doing events, doing team meetings, doing things like that. That to me, that was crucial in that they wanted to develop us, and they meant it, and I knew they meant it because they actually put some process and some structure around that whole focus. So it wasn't just talk. It was like, hey, we're doing this. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is that it was also just a lot of fun, right? I mean, we had a goal, we had
Sure.
an overall mission, and they encouraged us to do stuff. They encouraged us. Like for instance, just one. I know this isn't. Well, this is one good example. I said the guy who ran the place was a guy named Bill Page, and we used to call him Dollar Bill. And so when we were working late at night, trying to finish things, trying to get ready for like a trade show or an event or whatever that was, he would come by and he would bring over like a dartboard. And on the dartboard, he would put with chalk, he would put like different dollar, like numerical, numbers.
Sure. $5, $20. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we would basically take like a 5-minute break or 10-minute break from what we're doing. And we'd all take a turn throwing a dart in the dartboard. And when we hit that number, we would get it. $20, $5,
wow.
$10, whatever, $1, whatever it was. Sure. But it was just a fun little escape. And it was just like, hey, it's just another little thing that we would do. It wasn't always just like going out and drinking or whatever. It was just like, hey, you guys are working hard right now and we need to continue. We're probably going to be here another hour or two, but let's take a quick 10-minute break and let me show you how much I appreciate you. That's what it was. It's like, let me just show you how much I appreciate you guys staying late at night, working, because you're going to get up early in the morning, whatever. So that was one thing that I thought they did really, really well. And then the last thing, big thing, and there's so many other things, but one last big thing is that they believed in you. I don't remember what it was that I did or that we did, but we had a supplier or someone, a partner or a customer, I can't remember which, they were upset with us. Mm-hmm. And they were upset with us with something that we did. It was a mistake, obviously, but they were just raising their voice and so forth. And I remember Bill Page and Beth Wright, who were the one was like the VP of marketing, one was the general manager of the place. Mm-hmm. And I remember that they stuck up for their employees.
Wow.
Like they wouldn't allow this customer, even though this or partner, either of which would be important, right? I mean, they're helping you bring in millions of dollars and so forth. But they said to them, sticking up for their employees was more important than potentially losing a client or a partner. And I remember sitting there thinking like, wow, it's like they're actually like not letting this person yell at us. They're not letting this person talk down to us. They're sticking up for us, whether it means they're going to lose this partner or customer, but they were doing it. And I remember thinking, like, I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I remember sitting there thinking like, wow, like this person is standing up for us. So
that's their commitment to you. And that's super commendable.
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of words like hustler, new normal, collaborative, pivot, culture, I've written down some words that I think we should start using. Trust, commitment, and a lot of these you've already used, dedication, educate, valued. Valued's a big one. Appreciate and fun. Mm-hmm. And the valued one kind of resonates with me because in the real estate industry, agents move when they don't feel valued and they don't feel like they have support. And I think that really in any business, you probably could go across and say, hey, I don't feel valued. I didn't get the raise that I thought I was going to get. I've been here for a couple of years. I don't find support. I can't get the answers that I need. And especially with realtors, that if you're a semi to good producing agent and the manager doesn't come by or the owner doesn't come by and say, hey, how you doing? Or if the owner doesn't even know your name, like I know when you get to the bigger companies and stuff, that's a little bit more difficult every time. But, to be valued is, boy, you can create a lot of loyalty if you can show your employees, your agents, your team that they are valued. I mean, they will ride to the end with you. But the moment that you lose their trust, they're not going to be committed to you. They're not going to have the dedication to you. All those things go out the window until you show them that they're valued. And you've got to make it fun. And, I used to do happy hours for a lot of our team members and stuff. And some people were like, oh, why are you doing it at 5 or 5:30? I'm still working. Don't worry about it. Don't come if you don't want to. This is for everybody else that wants to take that one break, that one half day, let's call it, every quarter to get together, to socialize, to make it fun, to bring that collaborative culture. And so, it's I think valued is probably a good key term that a lot of people and a lot of businesses are missing these days. So if you're a business owner, go value and tell your employees that you appreciate them. It goes a long way. All right. Let me see. Realtors themselves, I think that they are a brand, whether you're a team or you're an individual. So you work with a lot of brands. How can my real estate brand, though, stay relevant in today's market? How can I, earn someone's trust in today's market? And again, it's a big question,
Mm-hmm.
but you deal with a lot of brands. So why we've spoken about Amazon before, and I've told you I wholeheartedly trust Amazon because I know that if I ever have a problem, I can get it returned, no questions asked, done. I get my money that day as soon as UPS picks it up. Best Buy, I'm a big fan of Best Buy. I trust Best Buy. I know that their prices these days are on par with Amazon. So I can go into Best Buy, and because I'm an Elite Plus member, I got 45 days to try this thing out and return it. But as a realtor, how can I get people to know my brand, stay relevant with my brand, and trust my brand?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. It's a large question, and the reality is that trust and building trust is not easy. It actually takes time. It's not hard, but it takes time
Sure.
and effort. So I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, like do this, and you're automatically going to get trusted. No, it's not going to happen. True, the real trust that you're looking for, it's built over time, and we all know that we've sensed it, in terms of our friendships and our family and our important colleagues and so forth. So I'm not going to BS you and tell you that there's a secret, or a silver bullet, but I will say that there are some shortcuts, and these are not obviously, like I said, it takes time. But if you want a little bit of a shortcut, there's a little saying that I've used, and I actually wrote some notes down just to remind myself. But there's a saying that I've used over and over again. If you've listened actually carefully to this conversation that we've had, I've actually mentioned it a couple of times, just not said its name. And that's a phrase that I like to use called working with human nature, not against it. So
Okay.
I don't know. I've been a salesperson for much part of my life. And even when I wasn't in sales and I ran my own agency, essentially you're in sales because you're the person bringing in the money.
Yeah.
So I understand what it is to cold call and so forth. And I've always, and I've done this all my life. I've always looked for shortcuts and trying to figure out how can I go around the usual sales tactics, or how can I look different than a salesperson but still sell? How can I go around the rest of the group and create a shortcut? So the same thing with trust. So here's the thing: is that you need to basically look at how humans view different things. When I was talking about how I was getting founders to speak, on my show, well, human nature tells me that people love to talk about themselves. They don't have to be founders. They don't have to be, business people. They can be just everyday people. The person looking for a house. There's a story there. Try to get it out. Try to listen to it, because just that listening to it, they want to tell you their story. 95% of the time, people want to tell their story. Some people don't, but 95% of the time, most humans want to tell their story because they want to be heard, because they're not always heard in their office, they're not always heard in their homes, so they want to be heard. So what you want to do is you want to use human nature on your behalf, and so you can do different things. Like, for instance, the podcast that I've created a tremendous amount of content,
Mhm.
right? So this content is around branding, it's around entrepreneurship, it's around founders and so forth. Well, I happen to know a lot of those things, but I've built up a sense that people just automatically think I'm an expert,
Mhm.
with the content I've created and so forth. Now, I am an expert in some things, not in all things, but the point is that by virtue of just the content I created, in our society, we're socialized. Part of our human nature is to see like, oh, he's got a book, he's got a content, he's got a video, he's got this, he must be an expert. They don't
Sure.
even actually, here's a secret. Most people, when you write a book, most people actually don't read it. Some people do, well, a lot of people don't. But the very act of you handing a book to somebody automatically puts you as an authority, as an expert. Now, they may not trust you
Interesting.
fully, but it's a shortcut. It's like, okay, I'm willing to listen to this guy. I'm willing to see what he's all about. He's got all this content. He must be an expert. He does all this. He must be an expert. and it's a shortcut because you're using sort of like human psychology to work with, to work with them and to utilize human psychology to kind of get that upper edge, get that edge in terms of getting into the business and so forth. I used it to get, interviews. I used human nature to do that, and it worked. Founders, like in particular, love to tell their story more than most people,
Sure.
entrepreneurs. So that's part of using human nature for them. Now, from a real estate standpoint, to me, it's like there's a lot of ways that you guys can do to build that trust. One of them is, you can create a podcast. It's so easy. And you don't even need to necessarily even do a podcast, like host it somewhere. You can download into YouTube. You can do all sorts of stuff. There's a platform called Anchor that goes on your phone. You can record it in your phone. Imagine, and I actually used to do this too in my sales roles. I would basically, when I would finish talking to somebody, I would say, "Hey, do you mind just for a second? I'm going to put my phone on record, and I'd love to just ask you a couple of questions."
Sure.
And then I would do that,
Brilliant.
and then I would
Brilliant.
post that on YouTube. I would post it on my website. I'd post it on different places, so they would hear and tell their story. Now, and a real estate person, even if they're just starting out, all they got to do is find someone who's been happy with their experience using a real estate person. Like for instance, like I've told you a little bit about my experience. I found my real estate person because he referred a lawyer to me and a tax person to me. And I was like, wow, I really appreciated him. He didn't make, I don't know if he made money in the back end, but it wasn't his business. He just referred people to me.
Sure.
I used them and I thought, wow. So when I thought about now going into buying a house, he had a bunch of videos. He had all sorts of other things. He had, all sorts of content. And then, so in my mind, I was just thinking like, wow, why would I go anywhere else and then this guy to help me sell my home, right? And so I looked at his content. I looked at all the stuff. And plus the fact that he was kind of referring business to me, kind of built trust up with me. But
Wow.
here's the thing is that if someone came up to me, like a new real estate person came up to me and said like, what is it about you that you liked about your real estate person? Or what did you like about your experience? They can record me. They can record anyone who's bought a house, who's been
Sure.
happy with an experience, and boom, even though that wasn't your client, you can still like use that as a testimony. You can use that as an interview. And then when you're going out and talking to people, you can actually show them these videos. You can say, hey, look at all these people I've talked to who've been really happy with the whole process of an agent from our agency or our brokerage or whatever,
Sure.
doing all this stuff. So it's so easy to build content. And think about this. How many times have you had really interesting situations happen during the day? Like, I don't know, like there was something that you did that if you hadn't done this, it would have turned out bad for your client. Or like if you hadn't, stopped this from moving forward, it would have cost them $10,000 extra or whatever it might have been. Or you fixed something, or you had an issue and you solved it. Get out the video, record yourself talking about it. All it does is take like 2-3 minutes, and then boom, you're done. You've got another piece of content that you can submit as a podcast, submit as a video on YouTube and whatnot. You can record stuff in Spanish. Like you can, if you had a Spanish speaking
Oh,
client,
sure.
just record them in
Shoot.
Spanish. Just say, hey, just talk in your native language. And guess what? Now you are automatically can attract Spanish speaking, people. And
Well,
there's so many different ways to do
yeah.
this.
You bring up a very interesting point that I had an agent that was one of my mentees years ago, a Hispanic kid and perfect, Spanish speaking. And I said, dude, you got to go to, where the Spanish speaking, if you're going to door knock, go do it and speak Spanish. Like you've instantly got that connection, that bond, that trust that they won't have if I door knock them, and be like, hi, would you like to sell your house? So absolutely, man. I can't believe I've never even thought about telling somebody to go record a YouTube video in Spanish about sales. So this call has been worth it for me. So I've picked up some great tidbits here, and I don't know how you did it, but you've actually segued into like one of my last questions here, which is about, I know that you sold your home not too long ago. And one of the interesting things as I was re-listening to our conversation the other day was, you decided that you did not want to go with a discount brokerage. And you made that kind of clear, like, that's just not for me. I don't want any shortcuts. I don't want the discounted services that come with it. How did you kind of like realize that that was not the route that you were willing to go with selling your home? Because I will tell you, as a realtor for 20 years now, that is probably one of the number one objections that I get of, from a seller, is that, oh, this guy's willing to do it for X%, half of what I'm willing to do it for. Now, I know what I bring to the table, but you knew right out the gate that discount brokerage was not the way that you wanted to go to sell your home. So walk me through that.
So I won't pretend like I didn't think about it, like in terms of cost wise, right? Because
Sure.
you look at the percentage and you think, okay, maybe I should go cheaper. But once I weighed all the factors involved, I just decided that it was the best thing for me. And I think some of those factors where I mentioned to you that I had met this real estate person once, right? Several times before. And each time they provided some sort of value to me. But like, you meet people all the time. And that's the thing about real estate agents and even salesperson, is that you never know who's a customer. So
Oh, yeah.
it's like wherever I am, I always strike up friendly conversations. I'm not always selling people, but I always strike up conversation with them because I'm just naturally interested in hearing their story and listening to them and talking to them. And so this real estate agent was the same way. I had met him at, I don't know, some mixer, some function, whatnot. And we started talking, and then I think during the conversation, I mentioned that I was looking for another tax person, and he made a mental note. And then I don't know, the next day or so, he called me up and said, "Hey, I got this person that I'd love to recommend to you." And I went and met with them, and I used them for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and it was a great experience. And so that was like one of the elements, right? And the other element, of course, that he would call me periodically. Again, I was not selling my house or anything.
Yeah.
And he wasn't calling me all the time, but he would periodically call me and like, "Hey, how's that tax thing going on? How's that tax preparer doing?" And so forth. And then he recommended a lawyer to me. I needed a lawyer for something. And he was like, "Hey, let me recommend you this guy. I know this guy over here." And he told me who it was. And I went and visited him. Great experience again. So I really appreciated it. So I started looking at him not just as a real estate person, but as someone who's bringing me value. And so to me, just knowing that he understood some of the ins and outs of myself, of being a business, and then he had his own business too. And I felt like a kinship with him a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was thinking about the home, I was thinking like, you know what? I had some things in particular that I wanted to do. One is I didn't want to put any money really into the house. I would do some cosmetic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, let's just sell it. I don't want to put any time into it. I don't want to fix anything. But I don't know how to structure that, obviously. So I had to leave it up to my real estate agent, and I let him know what I was looking for, and he was able to tell me, and he was able then again to find a guy who was able to do the cosmetic stuff for me. He was sort of a project manager on that, and
Sure.
was there available whenever I needed help. And I mean, we talked hundreds of millions of times, perhaps, on the phone and text, but he was there for me. And so, I chose him because I felt he understood me. He understood me as not only as a home seller, but also as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also knew, like he was building trust with me through these recommendations that he gave me.
I mean, that's an incredible testimonial to that agent. And I think that, first of all, if he didn't take action the next day to send you the tax preparer's number, you wouldn't have done business with him probably. And so that's probably 99% of what agents, fail at, is the follow-up and follow-through.
Yeah.
He listened to what you were saying. He took action. He sent you something, not expecting anything in return, but he was just an advisor, an educator. And I interviewed Ron Wynn about a month ago on my Heavy Hitters episode, and Ron Wynn said the same thing. You need a plumber? I got it. A tax guy, a stucco guy, a pool guy, a car repair guy. I've got everything that you need. Just let me know what you need. And so the business may not come today, but it will come if you establish that trust, that relationship, and being an educator, a mentor, an advisor, someone that you can trust. And this guy clearly has built trust with you. And that's amazing. And so I'm glad that he got the sale. And let me ask you this though. Did you interview other agents?
I did interview other agents, and I was going to mention one other thing about him
Sure.
before I forget. He did something I thought was really good, and you and I mentioned this, I think, talked originally when we spoke. Um, he would call me up and he would say, "Hey, I just saved you X amount of dollars." He goes, because the other agents representing the buyer,
Mhm.
they basically wanted us to start like paying for something. Like when they did their appraisal, they found something with the roof. There was a
Okay.
spot on the roof.
Physical inspection.
And so he said they're requiring that you fix that before they buy, and then, or something to that effect.
Sure.
And he like, he didn't even call me because he knew I didn't want to do it. So
Right.
he told me that he basically said, "Listen, you knew going in that there was going to be, we're not going to fix anything. You're buying as is. Either you accept that or you don't. So we're okay if you walk away."
Sure.
And so he did that on my behalf. Um,
Wow.
and
That's gutsy.
yeah, he did it on my behalf, but because he knew I was telling him I just didn't want to. I didn't want to put any money into it. I didn't want
Sure.
to. So, but he knew that it was clear that was the case. But basically, I kind of felt like a younger or maybe a less seasoned real estate person would have folded, or
Oh,
would have,
sure.
maybe had some, not have been so clear. But he did it, and it was the right thing to do, and he saved me money because I wasn't going to go pay. And so he called their bluff. He knew they were bluffing. At least that's what he told me. And he knew that they're just that it's the agent's job, either for your buyer or for the seller, to get as best deal as possible. And he said that's what they're trying to do. He goes, I don't blame her, but I'm not going to fold,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so he did that, and I was just thinking, like, wow, if we had like one of these low cost real estate firms where you're paying like 1% or whatever, and you got it's kind of like the consulting gig, where to get the business, you get the high end management guys, but then the people who actually do the work are like the junior people. And
Right.
so I didn't want a junior person in there. I know they got to get experience, but when I'm selling my house, I want someone who knows what they're doing, or at least access to people who know what they're doing. And he clearly knew what he was doing, so I was really appreciative. But the very fact that he just didn't do it, and then just I never knew about it. He actually told me, and he did that several times. Like, he would come
Wow.
back and say, "Hey, we have this issue, but here's my solution. Here's what we're going to do, and I'm going to do it for you." And that was it. So like, he would tell me when he had these like little incidents and situations like what I just described, which I think is important. You have to let your client know that you're doing stuff for them.
Yeah. Communication. That's it. I mean, I'm telling you, it's so simple to say, and I don't know why more people can't do it, but I will let my clients know, and I will literally send them an email that says, I just wanted to give you an update that there is no update. Like, literally, that's my email. And I'm, haha, but literally nothing has happened in the past 3, 4, 5 days, whatever. So, I just want to give you that update, but it keeps the lines of communication open and lets them know, listen, most people don't sell more than 1 or 2 homes in their lives. I do this every single month, every single day. So I take that for, buying as a realtor, buying your own home is the best process that you can go through. And we went through it 2 years ago. And now I understand the psyche of what buyers go through when they're trying to buy a house and trying to fix the roof and asking for $12 here and $13 there. And, it's just such a great exercise to do. So, man, I please give your agent my number if he needs coaching. That'd be great. But also, I'd love to recruit him because he sounds like an incredible agent. So, listen, Ramon, this has been, I've got a copious amount of notes on here, and I am so deeply appreciative of your time. And we've gone over an hour now. I mean, that's incredible. So I didn't think it was going to go this long today, but gosh, any parting words, man? I mean, I'm so deeply appreciative of your time and for you doing this. And I'm glad that we've connected, and I hope that we can truly keep doing business together.
Yeah, no, likewise. I'd like that too. I think I've said a lot in there. I'm just, use human nature whenever you can, and use the human psychology, because it just makes things a little bit easier. It helps you build authority if you like build content or write books. It's so inexpensive to do all that stuff if you use things like Anchor to do a podcast, or Upwork to find people who will write content for you. We'll turn those little videos that you do into actual content and turn them into articles and drop them on Medium and everything else. So it's
What was
there's
that?
really
What was that site called?
Upwork.
Upwork, huh? All right.
Yeah. So you find freelancers there. I mean, you can post a job there. I've actually helped people get jobs. I had a guy who was up for a director for a services. He was in IT, and he knew what he was doing, but he was going up against a number of folks. It was a really good position. He had been out of work for I think 3 or 4 months, and he really wanted it. And he asked me. I know him personally, and he said, "What can I do to get this job? Like, how can I get the edge?" And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's you and me have a conversation. We're going to record this. I'm going to ask you questions about services and about how you would do this and how you would do that. And how you do this. We spent about an hour, doing this. And at the end, I sent him, I took the recording. I went to a place called Sonics. It's an AI-based transcription service. Costs like $10.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it's really good service. It's an AI-based service. It transcribes everything for you, and you can even turn it into like little audio clips. And so I did that. And then we went to Upwork, and I said, this is probably going to cost you like, based on the amount of words that we have here, it's going to cost you like, I don't know, 40, $50. And so we hired somebody. They wrote up a piece of content, like a 3 or 4 page white paper. And then on Upwork, we found a guy to design, put it into a nice looking design for like $20. And for $60, he just landed a job that is now paying him $120,000 a year.
Wow.
And so, but what we did is we took that piece and we turned it into multiple little white papers, and then he uploaded them on LinkedIn. And then when it came to the interview, he printed them out, and then he also sent him a link. And then later on, they told him that, that was one of the things that they loved about him, that not only knew what he was doing, but he was a thought leader, right?
Sure.
Again, it's that shortcut to building trust, because now he looks like an authority. And that just happened like a little less than a year ago. And that's just like looking for work, right? So imagine taking something like that and turning it from a real estate standpoint, finding ways to build authority in there and doing those shortcuts to building trust. So that's pretty much all I would say. I know I took a little bit longer there, but yeah.
No.
I would, man.
Listen, I'm captivated. So we can go for another 30 minutes, but today's my wife's birthday, so I gotta get out of here. So, but listen, I think that I don't know. I forgot what my train of thought was going to be about that guy, but I know what it was. A little extra effort. And in real estate, I'm all about the angles. What can I do to get my client from A to Z? Because Z is the closing. It's not A to B, whatever. So for me, A through Z, because there's a lot of steps in between. And that's what you created for this person, was some angle to make them stand out, to be different, to land the job. So as a realtor, as an agent, what are the angles that we can do to stand out and be different? And I think that with the Spanish-speaking videos, boom, you're different. All of a sudden you've established trust and rapport with people, and you can start tapping into that market. And there's so many things. People will have to watch this video over and over again. And speaking of Anchor.fm, which is, I just switched over to Anchor.fm / Think Like an Executive. That will be on there. What a easy breezy system to use. You want to be on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, I mean, the list goes on and on. You hit a button and it just basically puts it out on everything for you. So Anchor.fm / Think Like an Executive. Super easy to use, free. Use your phone. You can now have a podcast like the other 750,000 people out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Ramon, where can people find you? Where can they see the Story of a Brand podcast?
Well, they can go to Apple, they can go to Spotify, they can go to Stitcher, Google Play, all pretty much every place that you would go and get, and get a podcast. I prefer people go to Apple Podcasts, because that's kind of like my main thing. But they can go all sorts of different places. So they can just type in the Story of a Brand. And so on Spotify, unfortunately, it's under the Story Behind a Brand, and that's a long story, but I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can go to Story of a Brand. They should be able to find it, or type in Ramon Vela, and you should be able to find it as well. On LinkedIn, you can type in Ramon Vela. I'm always welcome for people to connect with me, ask me questions, anything I can do to help. If I don't respond right away, don't worry. Feel free to ping me again, because I just get so many emails and direct messages that sometimes I get behind. But I spend like a half a day, like at least once a week, going through all my messages just to make sure I connected with people. Sometimes I'll just send you a quick hello, hi, whatnot. But if you have a question, just be specific, and I'll try to help you as quickly as I can.
That's great. And everybody out there, real estate agents especially, don't forget, every Monday at 2 p.m., I have the scripts, objections, rebuttals class. They are $25 a session. I mean, you can't pass it up. And right now we are taking subscriptions and subscribers for next week. Starts another week of the $97 no excuses boot camps that we have. You get 2 private coaching sessions per month and 2 of the scripts, objections, rebuttals. So for under $100, you can get private coaching. I don't know why you're not signing up. Go to thinklikeanexecutive.com. Ramon, thank you so much for being on this today. This was very informative, and I'm deeply appreciative. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm so grateful, and I appreciate it that you asked.
All right, let's stay in touch, buddy. I'll see you
All
soon.
right, take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.